Welcome to the Infill Podcast, where we interview the most interesting members of the 3D printing and maker communities live and with audience participation. And now, here is your host, Jonathan Levy.
Welcome, everybody, to the Infill Podcast. And yes, for those of you tuning in, this is literally the best I could do with my hair today. So a welcome treat for everyone tuning in live. We have an amazing guest for you all. I'm really excited because we're going to learn a lot. I know I'm going to learn a lot. And one of my main reasons for doing this podcast, as I was telling our guest, is just having all these conversations that people are having behind closed doors out in the air and airing opinions and saying, hey, why don't we just ask them why they do it that way or what their policy is on that or how they form their opinion and talk about it, because why not? So I am joined today by Daniel Barousse, who is the co-founder of Slice Engineering, which he co-founded in 2017. It always happens that my bios disappear the moment that I hit the live button, but this time I predicted it and I knew to pull it up. So Slice has been recognized with numerous awards, including the 2021 Startup of the Year from 3D Printing Industry. Outside of work, he likes to read, run, and spend time with his wife and son, which is something we shared. And Dan studied mechanical engineering in college, traveled the world with nomadic parents, and is just generally a super interesting and lovely human being that I got to know at Formnext. Dan, welcome. Daniel?
Yeah, either one. Yeah, Dan.
Okay.
Dan is what most people call me. So thank you for the great bio intro.
Welcome.
Nice.
Thank you for providing the great bio. So I'm really excited to have you. And everyone in the comments, just let me know that you can hear the audio well, because I'm trying out a different mic. So if I'm louder or quieter, do let me know. And Bert, thank you so much for the super chat. That is super appreciated. Dan, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here, and we're going to cover a lot of different things. But first, I want to know how you got into 3D printing. So you studied mechanical engineering. Is that where you were exposed, or how did you first get exposed to 3D printing?
Yeah, first exposure was definitely in college studying mechanical. So you're kind of, you can't do mechanical basically and not get exposed to 3D printing on some level. Although I wish there was more exposure when I was in college. I think now there is a lot more of that. We're close to my alma mater actually, and there's a lot more emphasis on additive manufacturing technologies now. And there's multiple labs on campus now where they have metal printing and all sorts of cool things that they did not have when I was in school. But yeah, first exposure was in college, and then I worked in the medical device industry on the manufacturing side for the most part after that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a need for 3D printing there. We used it in line at work, and that's essentially. I ended up getting one at my house. My co-founder had one at his house, and we were kind of playing around with stuff. And Chris, my co-founder, ended up deciding there could be a better hot end. So that was the genesis of how
What
this
was
whole idea
that
came
first
about.
printer that you got?
We had CraftBots.
Okay.
Yeah, we
I haven't
had
even heard of that.
CraftBot 2 Plus. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah, they're
so that was
a European company.
interesting. And so at the time, I imagine that hot ends were not anywhere near where they are today. But what was it that made you say hot ends? Because there's a lot of people. I think I'll tell you a funny story. So I used to sell luxury car parts, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, we did a lot of business in Florida, and
I bet.
luxury car parts for BMWs. And I remember one time I sold a set of wheels that were like $10,000 with tires
Cool.
and everything, and I think we made like $70 because the customer just chiseled us down so much. And I took it to the tire shop, a guy from Indonesia, and he asked me, he's like, "How much did you make on the set?" And I was like, "I don't know, $70 after everything, which doesn't even cover my gas to come over here and get the tires done." And he goes, "You see this
Jeez.
hubcap, like the hubcap insert thing?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Not sexy, right? Not as sexy as saying you sold a $10,000 set of wheels." I was like,
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, the guy who owns this factory is a good friend of mine, and he just bought his fourth Lamborghini." I was like, so I'll ask you this, because making printers is really sexy, right?
Yeah.
What made you say hot ends of all the things, right? Not software,
Sure.
not the beds, not belts. Why hot ends?
Yeah. So it was two things. One of our core values is let form follow function. So we try to think that way. It's sort of an engineering mantra, so to speak. And so we were looking for a problem that we could actually solve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the function. And then there needed to be a business case behind it. And so I looked at the PC industry. My role at the time at the medical device company where we worked was I was analyzing uh, startups and then providing a report to the C-suite, the executive team, about basically was this startup number one viable, and then would the technology fit within our larger publicly traded companies portfolio, and should we acquire them? And then I
Mm,
didn't make any decisions after that. I just made like a little report recommendation, send it upstairs, and they made the call. But I got to interview a bunch of founders and learn their business plans, and I was running business cases. And so I looked at the PC industry and how it sort of grew. And there's been a lot of, this is not an original idea. A lot of folks have drawn parallels between the PC industry and how it grew and expanded and the additive industry.
right.
And what you saw in the PC industry was that over time, the margins on PC got smaller and smaller and smaller
Yep.
until they basically vanished, right? And the only way companies could compete was then to offshore manufacturing. All
Right.
computers used to be sold in the U.S. used to be made in the U.S. They're all now made overseas. Uh, However, folks like Intel, who were making core components, not necessarily the screws or uh, so let's say non-core components, but core components, they were able to retain margin longer term. And so that's why I looked at the hot end uh,
Right.
as a potential way to do that. But first and foremost, we wanted to be able to solve a problem, and so the business case was a secondary consideration.
Mhm.
Building a printer is also really hard. Like, to do
It
it
is.
well is really, really hard. And there were only two of us, and we didn't have any money. So we're like, okay, how do we start a business? We knew we wanted to start a business. We knew we wanted to do it in additive because we were passionate about that. But how to do it effectively was basically the answer we were trying to. That's the problem we were trying to solve for.
Right. And so I'm going to play dumb, but also I'm dumb. So Slice is known for the mosquito hot end, and kind of give me
Mhm.
your claim to fame, right? Like if I all I know is the hot end that came on my Creality or Prusa. Like, why does someone
Mhm.
buy a Slice hot end? What is it doing better? And yeah, let's start there.
Sure. So our basically, you're familiar with USPs, our unique selling points. So
Mm-hmm.
our selling points are performance, reliability, and quality.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are somebody who is, for example, running a print farm and you want to have reliable performance over the long term, uh, that's where we come in. So if you want to see improved higher speeds, for example, higher
Mm-hmm.
throughput, uh, we can provide that. If you want something that's going to run instead of for hundreds of hours for thousands of hours,
Right.
we can provide that. If you want something where you care about the quality of the final output, a lot of our customers are in industrial applications. And
Mm-hmm.
so they have to certify or invalidate the entire process. They care about not only what is the process used to make the part, what are the material inputs, what are all the components in this supply chain, and they have to be able to certify this entire thing and say these are all parts that comply with FDA regulations or FAA regulations or Department of Defense mil spec stuff. So if you're in that type of category, that's really where we shine.
Got
That's
it.
that's
And
that
so
is
it
the
sounds like from
USP.
what you're saying, really direct to hobbyist is a small part of your business compared to businesses that really need exacting standards.
Yeah, I'd say when we started it, the hobbyist side was the majority of the business.
Hmm.
That's certainly no longer the case. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Interesting.
We
And
certainly
so,
still support that side of the market, right? Like we have a lot of customers that have been with us since 2018 when we launched
right,
at the Midwest Rep Rap Festival. I mean, that was very
right.
much it's a hobbyist show. We love those shows. They're a ton of fun. You get to hang out
Yeah,
with
yeah.
people. Um, but yeah, the majority of our revenue doesn't come from that
And
anymore.
I've kind of come to realize that that's like almost everybody except maybe Creality, right? Is we
Yeah, that's probably
hobbyists
true.
enjoy the fact that businesses like yours or Prussia or maybe even Bamboo, right? A lot of them, their R&D budget doesn't come from us, right? It comes from your business clients, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like Formula One, right? Like I'm not getting the technology that Ferrari's putting in their F1 car, or maybe a better example is like Honda is putting in their F1 car, but I'm
Hmm.
benefiting from the fact that they're out there doing that, right? and
Oh, totally. Yeah,
it's
you're
the
getting
same.
regenerative brakes on your hybrid. You're
Right.
getting, better materials technology from the engine because they've tested it for
Right.
thousands of hours on a racetrack at 8,000 RPM.
Right.
Yeah,
And so
totally.
let's get into kind of what Slice is known for, which is you guys have a unique stance on
Mhm,
IP, and you guys are
mhm.
known to patent your designs, and that is no longer nearly as controversial as it used to be. But give me the background, because as I said before we hopped on the
Sure.
call, and to everyone saying that my audio is low, I know, but I don't have any way to bring it down up. So I'm gonna bring Dan's audio down, and then you can all increase your volume, and then hopefully it's all gonna work out. When I met you at Form Next, I didn't know all this stuff because I was very new to this whole world, and I asked you your opinion of Fetus,
Mhm.
and then I got filled in later, and I was like, man, I embarrassed myself. So give us the background, right?
I
Because
get that question all the time, so not embarrassing at all.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So give us the background, right? You
sure.
guys take it away.
Okay. Yeah. So, I guess first part is yes, we do have patents.
Mhm.
I think that's probably obvious to everybody. Um, we launched the company with patents from the very beginning, so there was
Mhm.
never like oh, we made a big pivot or something. Our very
Right.
first prototypes had that we sold at Murph had the patent pending, label on
Mhm.
it, which is a legal requirement in the United States. So we, complied with the law in that case, uh, or in all cases. um, so what we've done since then is in 2019, early 2019, we launched a Kickstarter campaign and we launched an open source product line called Copperhead. And so we
Mhm.
have a whole product line that is an open source product line. And some of those parts are used on non open source machines, for example,
Mhm.
or they're used in, I mean, all sorts of applications. But we do have a full open source product line. All of our manufacturing drawings are posted online. Most other companies aren't going to post their manufacturing drawings. They're going to post
Right.
some very stripped down version, right? Even companies that have a very hard FOSH or free and open source hardware stance
Mhm.
typically don't post their manufacturing drawings. So we do that for all of our open source products, and then we post sort of more scaled down versions of our patented products,
Mhm.
the drawings of our patented products and the step files. And those are all shared under a non-commercial license. So if you want to take our patented stuff and do research with it, modify it, remix, what all that stuff is fine.
Right.
Um, we love that. We endorse that. We're just asking you not to sell it commercially
Yeah.
because that's how the innovation cycle gets broken.
Right.
If we can't reinvest the profits back into the business, then you don't hire more people and you don't
Right.
actually come out with new products or innovate. You're just a one hit wonder, so to speak.
Right. Or a foundation, I guess, on some level.
Or a foundation, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're a nonprofit, it's a different way to do it.
And
Yeah.
so I don't want to. I don't think there's any value in getting into the drama, but like what the way that you guys became known for this is Fetus. I don't know, allegedly, or you guys felt that Fetus copied your design and was commercially selling it.
Yeah, so actually, predating Fetus, there were quite a number of companies particularly on AliExpress,
Mm-hmm.
that were selling products that were literally called mosquito clone, and they were taking our trademarks, they were taking our, they were literally copying text right off of our website for the product descriptions and
Oh
taking
man.
photos that like Chris had like taken those photos and I'd written the copy,
Oh my god.
and they were just stealing everything right off the website and posting it on AliExpress. And so obviously there's a number of problems with that, but so we started to find ways to stop that from happening
Right.
as much as we could. And so the first kind of blowback that we got was when we took down from, or not us, but Alibaba Group, their
Mm-hmm.
intellectual property group, took down a listing of a clone of our product made by a company called Mellow, called the NF Crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
so they weren't calling it mosquito clone in the title, at least, but it was down there, sort of in the meta tags and stuff. Uh, so anyway, we had that product taken down because it looks exactly like our product, basically.
Right.
Um, and that's what started the initial blowback. where people like we got banned from the Voron Discord instantly without being able to even give a defense of ourselves, which is sort of an unusual
Right.
situation. We had a whole bunch of people got really upset at us and were posting mean things online and calling me names, which is normal online behavior, I guess, nowadays, but still
Right.
not very pleasant.
No.
Uh, and then months after that, we had the first takedown of um, uh, a product made by Fadis, which is their Dragon hot end, which
Mhm.
does infringe on our utility patent,
Mhm.
and both in the United States and in China, actually. So we have utility patents for that product in both countries.
Right.
So Fadis acknowledges that their stuff infringes on our utility patent. They've said as much to me in a video call. Um, and we actually looked initially for, we sent them a cease and desist letter, and we looked for a way to do, if you're familiar with the term FRAND, but fair, reasonable,
Yeah.
and non discriminatory licensing. Uh, but they would not agree to uh, basically pause production while we of their infringing
Right.
product and stop selling it. So it's kind of like imagine if somebody came and robbed your house, and
Right.
then you were like, okay, we can settle this. Like, give me my stuff back, and then we can work it out. But they
Right.
were like, no, we're not going to give you your stuff back. We're going to keep taking it.
While
And
we
while
work
we're
it out.
keep
Yeah.
taking it, please,
Yeah.
please give us a license, right? It's like, well, that doesn't feel very good. So that's
No.
kind of where the negotiations broke down. Um, so I'm not a huge fan for obvious reasons of the
Yeah.
Fadis brand. They've since done a lot of other things that don't infringe on our IP in particular.
Right.
They do infringe on other folks' IP, and they have actually way more patents than we do in China.
Mhm.
And they've patented a lot of things that, for example, Olson Ruby, the nozzle company in Europe, they have um, a ruby nozzle. So it's a ruby in the tip of a brass nozzle.
Right.
Uh, Fadis has patented that design in China. So Olson literally cannot legally sell their own products in China
Which they
because of
developed.
which they developed, right? Because of this practice. So not great. If Fadis was willing to have another conversation with us, we'd be happy to do that, but it would have to be contingent on, um, you stop doing what you're doing, essentially,
Yeah. So
the
let me
illegal
ask this
part of it.
question, and I'm a noob here, and I think the reason, from my limited understanding, I think the reason that the or the 3D printing community is so anti-patent is not in principle of like people deserve to make money on their innovations, which I think we all agree on, right? Like we all buy
Yeah,
from
I think so.
Bamboo when they
Yeah.
innovate something, or although many people say they didn't innovate anything, they took open source ideas. I think where people have the issue is that we're standing on the shoulders of giants. It's like with Bitcoin, right?
Hmm.
Like you can't, if everything that you've built on, the printer itself, the software, the hardware, da da da, it's all open source up to this point, and then someone comes along, innovates on top of that, and then says, okay, but this innovation branch, this is mine. And I'm
Hmm.
curious to hear, because on the one hand, and we'll get into, more and more companies, you guys get a lot of flack, but E3D has patented parts,
Yep.
Bamboo has
They started
patented
with patents,
parts.
by the way.
Yeah,
They started with patents very early on, and
right,
then gave those up because of backlash,
right,
right? And then sort of came back to that stance.
right. And I imagine it was very vindicating that Joe Prusa posted a blog post saying, like, hey, I'm not sure open source is sustainable in the future because, like, it shouldn't be open source to the extent that someone can literally just sell a clone of my product. And I think we
Right.
all agree with that, by the way. Like,
Yeah,
we
I agree with
appreciate
that.
open source because it means the source is open to us as consumers. Nobody who is giving you flack or any other company for patenting stuff, I think, is doing so because, hey, Dan, you should work for free, and people should be able to sell clones of your shit if they can make it cheaper than you can. Like, that's not how it works. So, so
I would
tell,
argue that there is a group of people that would say that
yeah,
we should work for free, everything should be free. Um,
those people have never paid
Unfortunately, we
payroll.
all have mortgages, right? We all have
Right,
mortgages to pay. If we need to eat food, like there's a very real economic reality,
right,
that everything isn't free. Uh, so yeah, there is absolutely a very vocal fringe of
right.
people that do say that, and
But I'm
that's
curious what your take is
disappointing.
on the standing on the shoulders of giants, because
Sure.
there is some
Yeah.
element of like Adrian Boyer and the original
Hmm.
designs for FDM printers, well, were patented, but so much of consumer 3D printing has come out of open source. And then at some point, different people, yourselves and E3D and many others, have said, okay, cool, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently and take it. And I support that, but I'm curious what your take is on that. Like,
Yeah.
are we
So
cursed to forever work in open source because the original designs and idea was open source?
mhm. So I love you almost made my point for me here. Adrian Boyer, much respect for the man. Um, he would not have had the capacity or capability to do the RepRap project if it wasn't for uh, folks who started Stratasys, right,
Right,
years ago, coming up with the initial ideas.
right,
So he's standing on shoulders of giants too. And the folks at Stratasys, by the way, are standing on the shoulders of the folks who did injection molding before that. And there's a number of, like, if you read the
right,
history of where some of these ideas came from, like there's nothing new under the sun, right?
right,
In the sense of every single human on the planet that has ever had an idea has had that muse, so to speak, spark
mm-hmm,
it from some experience that they've had in
right,
their life. And that's part of the argument for like if you really want to go philosophical on the open source versus
right,
patent stuff, that argument goes back thousands of years actually, with
sure,
people talking about way before patent systems existed. There was a conversation of, do you own your ideas or not? And so on one side you'd say people are saying, yeah, everything that comes out of my brain I fully own 100%. And on the other extreme side you'd say uh, everything that you come up with is not your own idea because it's based on the experiences that you had in whatever community you grew up in.
right,
Now, I tend to lean more on the um, free thought side
mm-hmm,
of the argument, but we do all stand on the shoulders of giants. Absolutely. If you
right,
look at a patent, any patent, it's going to have a list of prior art. Prior art is things that came before the patent that is being granted that help to inspire and create the knowledge for that patent. And so, if you look at our patents, for example, or Bamboo's patents,
mm-hmm,
they're going to have a list of prior art in the patent that says, basically giving credit. It's similar actually to the open source uh, what is the provision in the Creative Commons license for attribution? Thank you.
right,
Attribution for um, giving credit, basically where credit is due. So both systems have similar um, sort of thoughts behind them around giving attribution. So everybody stands on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of giants.
right,
The reason we have a hybrid model is because I believe in the fact that everybody who um, benefits from something. It's just like the same reason we pay taxes, right? Why do you pay taxes? Because you benefit from the community that you live in,
right,
right? Uh, we have patented certain things that we came up with using non-open source printers, but there were certainly lots of open source printers that probably inspired the non-open source printers that we used.
right,
And so we patented our stuff, and then we used our hybrid IP model with a lot of open source things and using non-commercial licenses to share as much of that information as possible with the community to hopefully drive further innovation.
right. And I mean, to me, it's awesome that you guys say, hey, do with it whatever the hell you want as long as you're not reselling it. Which I
Right.
think, no matter how anti-patent you are, that's just fair. And that's pretty much to the
I would agree.
that's to the tune of what Joe Prusa said. Like, you know, we make our stuff open source so people can tinker with it and so innovation can still happen, but
Hmm.
blindly profiting off of someone else's ideas without innovating in any way, shape, or form isn't cool. It's not cool, and I
Right.
don't think any of us would think it's cool. Um,
Yeah.
what
And
do you
I'd
what do you
agree with
think?
that. And
Yeah, after you.
so if you look at the outcry on Twitter or Discord when a particularly famous digital artist's
Right,
renderings or models are stolen and sold for profit, right? Like there's usually a huge outcry about that, which I appreciate. Like that person put hard work and effort into their art, and they created something novel, and
Right.
that should be they should be compensated for that if they want to be compensated for it. Like, you should have the right to be compensated for your ideas if you want to be compensated for your ideas.
Right. Right. So Joe said, and I think this is it's very interesting. And the reason I keep bringing him up is not maybe not because I think he's the authority on it, but because I think he's gotten so much credit for everything they've done for open source and living
Mhm.
and breathing the open source values. Though I know there's a whole faction of people who say they take things from open source and then they commercialize them. So they themselves are doing what we said is maybe not cool. If they didn't innovate Super Pinda, it's not cool for them to commercialize it. But what he was saying is we need something it's not open source, but it's a different kind of license. Do you think that your hybrid IP model is the way, or is there still ways that you could improve that you could see people coalescing around a different model that is what is needed to not stifle innovation, but allow you to commercialize your ideas?
Mhm. Yeah, so I do think that we need revision of the current model. I think
Yeah.
the hybrid IP approach is part of it, but I also think that, for example, there's the World Patent Treaty, the WPO. Uh, they basically, that treaty said we live in a global economy. Everybody's supposed to abide basically by the same rules,
Right.
except we don't, right? We know that, um,
Right.
and so I think if everybody abided by those same rules, and if the patent system, which was invented 200 years ago and has not kept up with the pace of digital innovation, was
Right.
updated, I think there would be a lot of improvements. For example, a patent right now, for the most part, lasts for 20 years in a utility patent. Maybe that's too long, right? But if you go to Germany, for example, if you apply for a patent in Germany, you're talking about a minimum time frame of 5 years to get your patent approved. So, what do you do in that case? Do you sit on your patent for 5 years before you commercialize that product? Well, by
Mm.
that time, the market has out innovated you, right? Do you wait to introduce it? Do you go ahead and introduce it now while it's patent pending, and then have face the legal consequences if you have to try to
Yeah.
recoup losses? I mean, there's all sorts of issues. So people have talked about shortening the terms of patents. To do that, we'd have to shorten the amount of time that it takes to get patents approved, right?
Right.
Uh, 5 years is a really long time to wait.
Yeah, and I never thought about the fact that maybe the patent system, as much as we say like patents stifle innovation, maybe it's not the fact that the patents exist, but the system itself stifling innovation. Like, how many people it in a perfect world, we want entrepreneurs and engineers and creative people to be unstifled and unhindered.
Right.
It should be as easy. I mean, think about the explosion of music over the last 100 years. It is so easy. I put
Yeah.
something online, and by default, I have copyright. Right? If I publish
Hmm.
it online and I put a little C,
Right.
or with trademark, you just have to put TM. That's it. You
TM.
put
Yeah.
TM, and that's it. It doesn't have to be a registered trademark, but you are claiming trademark. And then later, if someone
Hmm.
comes and infringes, you can figure out first use. Da 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 da. So
Right.
think about the explosion of innovation in music, because I don't have to, as a musician, become a freaking expert in
You don't have to be a
copyright.
lawyer. Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
an engineer, you do, because you need to know, like, is my idea different enough, and how do I file patents? And I'm sure this is a big part of what you guys do, is understanding that, which
Hmm.
ultimately the person that ends up paying is the consumer, because we don't get as much innovation from you as we could.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly the amount of time and money that the process takes right now is prohibitive to
Right.
continuing the pace of innovation at the pace at which we would like to innovate, right?
Right.
Um, if you look at the original, so most patent offices in the world right now are based off of the US model.
Mm-hmm.
And the US model is actually written into the Constitution. There's one little clause that talks about intellectual property, and that inventors and artists should have the rights to their inventions.
Right.
And the Constitution gave a provision for the creation of the patent office, which is pretty cool. It was the only, other than the postal system, it was the only like official department established by the U.S. Constitution,
Wow.
because a lot of the founders and original authors of that document were inventors themselves. You know, Benjamin Franklin. Um, uh, a lot of these
Thomas
guys
Jefferson.
were
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, George Washington had some interesting inventions. A lot of them were inventors, and so they wanted to make sure that their inventions were protected. Uh, but it was much faster at that point to get
Right.
a patent, or at least the pace of innovation wasn't so fast, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's really
So I
interesting.
think we
So I'm
could work
curious to
within the
hear. I don't know if you want to
system.
comment. We don't have to go down this road, but I'm interested to hear, because there is a big backlash against bamboo right now. And
Mhm.
on the one hand, they just did a blog post saying like, let the
The
arms
arms
race
race
begin.
began.
We're super
Yeah.
excited about Prussia. We're super excited that they're pushing things forward. They came out with some stuff we didn't think of. We're excited about it. And they said in that blog post that the CEO said, we're not going to do overly broad patents. We're not going to this, that, and the other. We're not going to, same as you guys, right? Like we have a hybrid model. It's really just to protect ourselves against people blatantly copying. And then people
Mhm.
on Twitter dug in and are like, isn't this an overly broad patent? Now, granted, myself, Nero, none of us are patent lawyers. But I'm curious what your take is. I don't know if you've had any interaction with them, but is that vindicating for you because of your history with the patent system in China, and there are a lot of bad actors? Are you skeptical of the ethos behind that, or do you just want to not go into that at all?
Well, I'll say I have not had an opportunity to dig into Bamboo's actual patents.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'll also say that the there's a certain way that you have to read a patent.
Mm-hmm.
So patents are inherently confusing because of the way they're written, right? There's so much legalese written into, and there's so much weight assigned to every word that it's difficult to read for
Right.
the average person unless you're used to reading patents. When our patent was granted, our first utility patent was granted, there was a whole uproar where people were saying Slice has patented the hot end. Now, the guy who caused this uproar on Twitter posted a screenshot from the background of the invention section of the patent,
Mm,
which is literally a description of what is the state of the art in the industry right now.
yeah.
And then the next section talks about
Oh man.
what is different about the thing that we are inventing, right? So there's like an intro, there's a background of the
Yeah.
invention, and then there's a claim section, uh, which is what you're actually talking about. And then there's the prior art section, right? So
Right.
there's a whole art, so to speak, to reading a patent. So I've not
Right.
read Bamboo's patents.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're overly broad or not.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'll reserve my opinion
Fair.
until
Fair.
I've had an opportunity to read those. But I will say, misreading a patent is an easy thing to do.
Yes. And actually, just as I asked the question, Kenneth Sang asked, how about the LSD Goliath hot end? What happened there? Which I think is a great question. I'm curious as well.
Sure.
He says,
Yeah.
same as Bamboo Lab patenting a belted triple lead screw system, which it sounds like maybe they tried to, maybe they did, or maybe
Okay.
that's us Twitter army misreading, the patent, which it may very well
Yeah.
be. So give us some background there. I don't know anything about it.
Sure. Yeah. So I don't know anything about the belted lead screw system patent, so
Right.
I won't pretend that I do. Uh, what happened with um, the Goliath hot end is Vez 3D is his online name, the guy who
Mm-hmm.
created the Goliath. He was an affiliate of ours. He was a very well paid affiliate of ours. It's his business how much money he made off of us, but to the tune of tens of thousands.
Wow.
So it's a decent amount of money.
I gotta get that affiliate
And
link polished up, man.
so at some point he came to us and he said, I want to build my own hot end. And we said, okay, that's cool. Build a hot end. And then he came back a few months later and was like, um, I want to build a hot end that's similar to the Mosquito. And we're like, well, um, if you're not commercializing it, that's totally fine. Like if you're just doing content and you're not going to sell these, that's okay. He was like, all right. So then he goes away and he just keeps, iterating on his hot end design. Then he came back and was like, I think I am going to commercialize this. And we said, well, that's a violation of our affiliate agreement, also a violation of our patent. We can do a license deal, or you can come and do design work for us. We actually offered him a job to do design work with Slice, and he declined that, which I understand. He's got a full time job where he does well for himself, and it's a good job. So No hard feelings there at all. But then he decided that he wanted Mello to make the hot end for him, and Mello is actively still selling products that infringe on everything, our copyrights, our trademarks, our patents. I mean, across the board. And
Wow.
so we told him, listen, as long as you're working with Mello, like we can't give a licensing agreement to Mello because I have I need to be able to trust the people that I work with. Because if you can't trust the people that you work with, then it just makes for a very difficult relationship,
Yeah.
um, no matter what it is, whether it's in a marriage or a friendship or a business relationship. I sleep better at night knowing that I can trust the people that I'm working with, and
Absolutely.
and I believe everybody does. So when he said, "Listen, I'm going to do this with Mello," at that point we're like, "All right, well, we can't do a license with Mello." Uh, we hadn't seen his design at that point, and we said, "Please go get a legal opinion from a lawyer so that we don't run into any trouble down the line."
Yeah.
And we sent him a very long email like, "Hey, here are the steps that you should follow. You should get a legal opinion." And he basically told us it was too expensive to get a legal opinion, um, and that he was going to go do it anyway. So when Mello launched the product, we asked Alibaba Group if they thought that this latest Mello product would infringe on our utility patent, and Alibaba IP Group agreed that it did, and they took it down.
What was the
So
patent? Just out of curiosity, like which
it's
patent
our
was it?
mosquito utility patent.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't. You keep saying utility patent. I don't understand the difference
Mhm.
between a utility patent and when people just say patent. Do they mean utility patent? What's the difference there?
Yes. So there's a couple different kinds of patents. They
Okay.
mainly fall into two groups: a design patent, which is the way something looks, the appearance, and a utility patent, which is the way something works. And
Okay.
there's other types of things for like code and chemistry, different molecules. Like there's other types of patents, but within the mechanical engineering world, uh, the main patents are around design. Again,
Hmm.
how something looks. I've got let's see here, jet engine over
Yeah.
here. So there's like Rolls Royce has design patents around that engine, and they also have utility patents around
Hmm.
how the specific things in that engine work. So we
Okay.
have both utility and design patents around our products, our
Okay.
patented
Very cool.
products.
Very very cool. And utility is because if I remember correctly, part of the controversial piece is like you guys have a unique way of separating the heat block from the heat sink,
Mhm.
and that's what
Yeah,
they infringed on.
exactly. Yeah,
And so,
yeah. So we call it, from a marketing standpoint, we call it a roll cage structure,
mhm,
but it essentially isolates the heat and also provides a mechanical structure
mhm.
that is very robust.
Cool. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. It's making sense to me now. More of it. Let's
Yeah.
get into more of the general questions. And I want to remind our audience if you tuned in live, one of the perks is getting to ask myself and Dan questions. So feel free to drop them in the
Nice.
comments and we'll be more than happy to answer them. You guys probably have a lot of 3D printers kicking around there that you're testing
We
different
do.
products with.
Yeah.
What if you need? I always try to not use the term favorite. If you need something to print right now and you don't have time to mess around with it, what's the printer that you're going to?
Usually Lulzbots or Infinity printers. We also have Crucias. So those would be the three kind of go-to brands if we need
Cool,
something done kind of right
cool,
away.
cool, cool. Very, very. How
We
many
also have a
printers do you?
Railcore. Yeah.
What's a rail core?
A Railcore is an open source machine that is a kit,
Okay.
and we use that primarily for testing.
Hmm.
Well, we test all sorts of machines, but that's like um, our test platform for just crazy stuff that won't work on anything else. Um,
Very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Very interesting. How many printers do you guys have there in house?
That's a good question. Probably 20-ish,
Hmm.
something like that. We have sort of a rotation where
Right.
we're bringing them in, test them, we'll sell them. Um, Speaking of which, if you want a printer that is outfitted with a bunch of slice stuff and is known to work flawlessly, um, sign up for our loyalty program. And whenever we sell the printers, we post them first in the loyalty program for people to
Awesome.
take
That's
advantage of.
very, very cool. What are you most excited about in 3D printing as a whole, whether it's a printer, a new technology, a patent, a trend.
Hmm.
What makes you really excited to come into work, and what makes you excited to play with your 3D printers?
Yeah. Uh, the reason I got into additive is because it's one of the few technologies that is developing right now that I believe has sort of world-changing potential. Not to throw that term around too loosely, but it's something I'm very excited about. And probably the thing that's gotten me most excited in the last year is one of our customers is a medical company called Curativa, and they launched about a month ago the world's first fully peak 3D printed implantable um, medical device. And
Wow.
it uses our hot ends, and we've been working with them since 2018. Um,
Wow.
but I was doing research on being able to do that at my company that I used to work for before I started Slice. And
Huh.
so to see that vision realized of being able to do more customized, faster throughput, less expensive uh, medical results that are going to have better patient outcomes is extremely exciting. I mean, it's if you get a spinal fusion surgery after, let's say, you have a car accident or something, and basically the state of the art is they put a big titanium plate in there that your body is never going to accept,
Right.
and it causes breakdown and damage in the subsequent vertebrae above and
Yes.
below, which is not great. So you
No.
have basically a decade to 20 years, depending on how well the surgery was done and how your body heals naturally, before you need a revision surgery, which really sucks. Like orthopedic surgery is like carpentry, like it's very hacksaw, like, it's not great. Um, but if you have something that your body will accept,
Right.
peak printed in a particular way with
Right.
certain nanostructure can be absorbed by the body.
Right.
Um,
We did a whole episode
it's
on it.
You did? Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the most exciting developments in orthopedic medicine in the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
And so more stuff like that where we can, in a very small way, our contribution to this whole thing is like minuscule, but the way I tell the team, like we are, I like Star Wars, so we're like Yoda in Star Wars. We try to help our customers along their journey to whatever it is that they want to do,
Right.
and while we keep innovating on the thermodynamics side. And so, being able to help this company do stuff like that, and
That's
we have
really
other
cool.
customers in the pipeline that are going to do similar things. So
That
that's
is
what I'm most
very
excited
cool.
about in additive.
For those listening, that was episode 4 with Guy Naim, who's a Hebrew University of Jerusalem researcher working on additional polymers to be able to that the body accepts as bone and will build tissue around like bone.
Yeah,
Fascinating episode, way out of
it's
my
awesome.
depth. That was like just trying to grasp, but super cool.
I need to go listen to that one.
Oh yeah, it's a good one. It's a really good one. Zombie Hedgehog, hey Zombie, welcome. Wants to know, what do you think has been the best innovation in hot ends outside of Slice over the recent years?
It's a good question. The ability to get more flow rate out of the same length of nozzle with Bontex CHT nozzle. I know it's not technically a hot end, but it still applies to
Right.
the print head. Let's say. I think that's probably the most innovative thing that has come out in the last couple of years.
Very cool.
And we actually played with something similar to that back in 2017, 2018, and couldn't get it to work right. So huge props to Bontek and their team, and the guys over at 3D Solex for figuring out how to get it to work.
Yeah, and they patented it as well.
They did. Yeah.
And their patent is already very thoroughly infringed on AliExpress as well.
Yes,
Though
indeed.
maybe not, because I know the ones on AliExpress have a removable bit, so there's big
Okay.
questions about, is that significant enough of a difference? I don't
All right. Yeah.
know. I wanted to ask you, so E3D has decided removable hot ends is the way they're going. I asked them at Formnext, they said, get on board, like this is what's happening. We're going to do a high flow one, we're going to do a hardened one. Prusa has now switched the Mark IV to quick
Mhm.
swap. And bamboo, obviously, notoriously, like you have to, you know, swap. Is this something you guys are
Yeah.
looking at? Is this something that, given the demands of what you guys are doing, is not feasible, or are you guys on board with, hey, yeah, quick swap nozzles?
Mhm. Yeah. So one of the nice things about the Mosquito is that it's always been easy to swap a nozzle.
Okay,
Uh, so we like that aspect. It's one of the things that inspired us building that roll cage structure is the ability to do a nozzle change very quickly. It does still require a tool, but engineers like torque wrenches, so at
right,
least I do.
right.
I know for a fact that it's tight when I tighten it. Um, so it is very easy to swap a nozzle. I will say we are always looking at industry trends and always exploring uh, new ways of doing things. Um, so yeah, that'll be my full
Yeah,
comment on that.
I really hope that it coalesces. Like, I know, we've talked a lot about patents and stuff like that, but like, I swear, if Bamboo doesn't open up their AMS to just all filament manufacturers using the same RFID codes, and like, come on, Proust, yeah, like they claim that they've been developing their quick swap nozzle even before E3D came out with theirs, so it just, they were already. But like, come on, we gotta all have the same. If we're gonna do the quick swap thing, like, let's all do it together,
Yeah,
But that's just
it's going to
me
be
because
hard to get standardization in an arms
so
race.
hard, so hard, so hard.
Yeah,
We got some really, really good questions here. Legacy of Bob.
awesome.
Since the purpose of patents is to protect innovation, what kind of innovations can you hint at that are coming from Slice that are specific to the consumer prosumer market, if you can hint at any?
Yeah. Um,
Well,
we
you
will.
guys sent me a product,
We
and
did.
this answers on another question. Any hints of new products coming from Slice? You sent me a product, and then there was an embargo, and so I haven't gotten a video out about it. But you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I will. I will talk about that.
I might have a
So,
handy here.
so we will have two new products that will be launching at Rapid, which is in Chicago next month. It's North America's largest uh, 3D printing trade show. One of the products that will launch there will be more consumer focused, even though it is at an industry trade show,
Hmm.
and it is a new nozzle that we're very excited about. And then uh, so stay tuned to our social media. We'll have a new nozzle soon. And then the other thing that we'll be launching is more industrially focused, and it's focused on it's a hot end with even higher flow rate than what we've done before.
Very exciting. Which
Yeah,
reminds me, I always forget to do this in the middle of the episode, but we do need to take a quick moment and thank today's video sponsor, which is Soval, makers of the SV06 Plus, which is their all new, larger i3 style printer with a whole bunch of their own different innovations. But what's interesting about this, Dan, is they have made it completely open source and they share all the step files.
interesting.
They've changed
Oh,
quite a few things on there. I think it's a, I mean, the performance, the print size, it's bigger than the Mark III. It costs a fraction as much as the Mark III. Uh, Highly polished, fantastic auto leveling. They've done some cool stuff
hmm,
with the hot end to make it high flow. It's just a great printer. I played around with the SV06, converted it to Clipper, and it was just a beast. It's a phenomenal printer. So make sure to check out the link in the description. You can use coupon code NEXTLAYER to get, I think it's $10 off an order of $259 or more. And thank you to Soval for sponsoring this episode and so many podcasts that we've done. So thanks, Soval. All
thanks
right,
so.
Dan, I'm back. I am back. And you can probably put a Slice Engineering hot end on the Soval.
You might be able to. Yeah, I haven't actually played with the Soval, so
I
we'd
think it's
have
really
to
cool
check
what
it
they
out.
did, right? They said like, okay, people want a Prusa style printer, but we're gonna innovate, and we're gonna do things
Hmm.
differently, and we're gonna change the way that it works, and we're gonna, I mean, just the fact that they injection molded, right, is a significant
Hmm.
enough difference. But they changed the hot end. They did a planetary drive
Extruder.
extruder.
Yeah,
It's like that's the way to do it, right? If you're gonna do a Mark III clone, like make it better,
yeah. Make it
um,
better. Yeah.
and then it's fine, right? Um, Favorite filaments or top filaments that you guys like
Ooh.
to print with?
Yeah. So we are a 3DX Tech reseller.
Mhm.
So I have to give a little plug to 3DX Tech. They make some really, really good higher end stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, on the other side of the spectrum, Printed Solid makes really solid PLA.
Yep.
There's a number and we buy filament from everybody. We have like a huge filament cabinet with filament from all sorts of manufacturers. Um, what have we been printing with a lot recently? We've been printing with a lot of color fab recently.
Mhm.
Their glow fill stuff. Um, yeah, my favorite personally is just for the ease of use is probably the printed solid PLA. It's
Very
just
cool.
easy.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are the questions we have? And make sure to submit your questions, everyone. Rav Memad, hi friend, wants to know: do you
Hey.
print Peak in house, and if so, on which printer?
Yeah. So we sometimes do that, not often. We had an Intamsys machine that we cycled through and sold.
Mhm.
We now have a machine from Infinity 3DP that is they're a new partner out of Taiwan, and so their machine we haven't actually printed Peak on that machine yet. It just arrived recently, but that will be our Peak printing machine, um, at least for the next couple of months.
Awesome. Last thing you printed,
A garbage truck for my son.
was it the one that articulates and then has the little flippy thing?
No, so I wish I'd done that one because it was printed in multiple pieces, and then he and I sort of like assembled it.
Yep.
And but then after I assembled it, he wanted everything to articulate, and I was like, I should have done the other one, but I didn't. So
My
I
son
gotta make another
literally,
one.
like, I put it in his hand. In less than 5 seconds, he broke the trash lifter thing. It
Yeah,
was remarkable how fast he broke it. I didn't even get a chance to video it.
right.
Um,
That's why I decided not to do the articulating one because the last articulated thing I printed for him was an excavator. His two favorite things in the world right now are excavators and
yep.
garbage trucks. And so the excavator he broke, same thing, literally instantaneously. It was like, here you go, broken.
Wow.
So yeah,
My son is not yet at the point where he makes long sentences, but his current record for longest sentence is, "I want Abba to make an orange truck." That's the longest sentence he's ever said with the
that's
best
awesome.
grammar. I was like, I better print a freaking orange truck. That's like,
You
I want to
better,
reward
yeah.
that behavior, you know?
That's great. The garbage
Um,
truck I printed was also orange. That
yep.
was also
I've
by
got orange
request.
in the bamboo right now. I'm gonna, as soon as we get off this call, because that thing is noisy.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have any more questions. This has been an
Okay.
absolute blast.
Yeah,
Where
thanks
can
for having me.
people learn more about you, check you out? Are you guys on the socials? Do you produce any content, or just is it sliceengineering.com?
Yeah, so Slice produces a lot of content. I'm uh, a bit of a social media hermit, I guess, and it's my family takes up most of my time outside of work. But if you would like to engage with me on social media, I'm on LinkedIn, um, and then Slice is on all the major platforms. Sliceengineering.com. You can email us, chat us, call us, uh, direct message us. Trying to think if there's any other. Fill out a form on the website. That's
Awesome.
all the possible ways you can contact us.
And now that I know that people are making tens of thousands of dollars on the Slice affiliate program, there will be an affiliate link. No, I'm just kidding.
You should do that.
I think I've just been waiting to do some content about Slice, but we're set up. We're set up.
Nice.
Dan, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks to everyone for tuning in.
Thanks, Jonathan.
At Zombie Hedgehog says thanks for coming on. Absolute pleasure as always. And I'm gonna let the stream deck take us out. And we can wrap after.
Alrighty.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infill Podcast. For show notes or links to anything mentioned in today's episode, visit thenextlayer.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to leave us a review wherever you're listening, or click the like button to let us know. And consider subscribing to The Next Layer on YouTube so you can tune in live and participate in the next conversation. We'll see you on The Next Layer.